Welcome again to another presentation from the DonPotter.net website. This is Don Potter, and this is the third in a series from Chapter 2 of the case for the prosecution by Geraldine Rogers. We're beginning on page 27, the last paragraph. The three little girls that Schulte worked with had been recommended to her by her classroom teacher. The girl could read only whole words called A was described as the best reader. The other two as an average reader and a poor reader. The fact that the whole word reader was described as the best reader must have impressed those early experts, so they probably overlooked the fact that the teacher also said that girl A was much below average in all her other schoolwork besides reading, had no initiative, and could never be depended upon to do a piece of work. Obviously, the poor little child could not read, but could only guess from sight words. She certainly would not be able to spell, so how could she, quote, do a piece of work, end quote. Equally obviously, since all three girls had to guess from context, that means that none of these University of Chicago laboratory girls back in 1911 or so could really read. In reading through their school readers used since first grade, Schulte found that girl A scored 87.6%, girl B 90.5%, girl C 82.4%. So only girl B, the girl who used most phonics, managed to score above the frustration level for all reading 90%. That, by the way, was said after the study was done at 90%. Of course, that means she just squeaked through. After all, since these girls were only being asked to read the same reading books they had studied in school from first grade to midway in second, they should have been able to read them above frustration level. It was obvious to Myrtle Schulte that these three little girls represented two different kinds of readers, those who could see words in part and those who could only read whole words. Schulte immediately referred to a 1903 study by Oscar Mesmer in Germany, discussed on page 92 of Edward Burke Huey's famous and widely read 1908 book, The Psychology and Pedagogy of Reading, which is available at googlebook.com. Schulte's reference to Mesmer's 1903 work on the two different kinds of readers, which have been discussed in Huey's famous 1908 work, certainly suggests the existence of two different kinds of readers was almost common knowledge at that time. That is because Myrtle Schulte apparently knew right away what her study meant, and what her study had only confirmed what Oscar Mesmer had already found, the existence of two different kinds of readers. Arguing with Cattell after 1885 about whether people did or did not immediately see whole words when reading, the German experimenters had kept on with their high-speed flashing of words when Cattell returned home to America after having first spent some time studying in England with the famous scientist Sir Francis Galton. Disapproving Cattell's results, a man in Germany named Julius Zeitler found in 1900 that people he tested had first read dominating letter complexes, which I suggest are syllables, and afterwards read words. Zeitler wrote, I quote, "The word form is indeed apparently assimilated as a whole. Secondarily, but primarily, it is apperceived only in its dominating constituent parts." End quote. Zeitler also said when reading, and I quote, "we arrange the dominating complexes successively one after another," end quote. Back to Miss Rogers. Another German, Oscar Mesmer, tried it again and turned up something really new in 1903. It was the very thing which that's Miss Rogers, had considered the great discovery of my 1977-1978 sabbatical research, in which I individually tested the oral reading of approximately 900 second graders in this country and Europe in their own languages after having observed the teaching methods used in the first grades in their schools. I have been absolutely dumbfounded to find, by stumbling across Mesmer's results in December 1980, that my great discovery, that's Miss Rogers, of 1978 had already been announced 75 years earlier. Mesmer had announced in 1903 that there were two different kinds of readers, which was exactly what I had found in 1978. Mesmer found that one kind reads Zeitler's dominating complexes off the page with great accuracy. He found that the other kind reads whole words off the page instantly, but in doing so guesses, and in guessing makes errors. Mesmer called the readers the dominant complexes, which Ms. Rogers suggests are syllables, objective readers, and he called the whole word consciously guessing readers the subjective readers. Objective readers, subjective readers. Germany had been teaching the analytical synthetic method for years, teaching phonics from words, but in crowded classes, the probability that it sometimes degenerated into a straight sight word method, which might account for Mesmer's subjective whole word readers. Zeitler can be said to have confirmed the existence of level 1, the syllable in reading, followed by level 2, words in syntax. However, very interestingly, Mesmer confirms the use of level 3, consciousness in reading, but only for subjective readers, since they obviously have to use consciousness in order to guess at sight words. Mesmer's subjectives, therefore, by definition, can never read automatically because they must use consciousness to decide on words. By contrast, Mesmer's objectives have the potential to read with conscious attention on the reading act itself or to read automatically, which means without conscious attention on the reading act itself. That leaves their consciousness totally free to concentrate, if they freely choose to, on the meaning of the text. Unlike Mesmer's subjective, Mesmer's objectives do not have to read with a flickering, divided attention, the strained attention of the hard of hearing, who must divide their attention one moment trying to figure out what the word must be, and the next moment trying to use those words to figure out the content of the conversation. Therefore, the objectives, who can have undivided attention, have the potential to read with greater understanding when they do not permit their totally free attention to wander. So Myrtle Schulte turned up the same accurate, little dominant, complex, objective readers that Mesmer turned up 9 years earlier before, which are the clockwise, and let's look at our chart here again, which are the clockwise kind on Susalos triangle, and she also turned up the inaccurate, clockwise kind. She also turned up the inaccurate, context-guessing, whole word subjective readers, who are the counterclockwise on Susalos triangle. But Myrtle Schulte did not think of it in the way just discussed. That is, the subjective readers who are the disabled readers because of their divided attention, just as the hard of hearing are disabled learners because of their divided attention. Instead, she concluded exactly what anyone would have concluded at the University of Chicago climate of the time. Phonics may train children to read words in parts, and that might interfere with concentrating on the meaning of words. They might not complete the circuit to the meaning of meaning on this Encyclopedia 1913 triangle, to which she did not refer and of which she may not have known. Concentrating on words parts, phonics, might therefore interfere with reading comprehension. You might ask, how can you tell if a student's reading this way, counterclockwise, for the meaning and guessing the sound of the word, or is reading the best way from the visual to the oral and then to the sound without guessing? I would like to suggest the Miller Word Identification Assessment will enable you to determine that. Mr. Edward Miller, back in the late 1980s, took 50 sight words and 50 phonics words. These phonics words came right out of Rudolph Flesch's Why Johnny Can't Read and What You Can Do About It, a book every reading teacher, every parent should have. You have them read both lists and you time them. And if they have over a 15% slowdown, is to say, if they read the sight words faster than the phonics words, that is a perfect sign that they were taught by the meaning method, as we call it here, and are guessing the words inaccurately. Students who were taught with phonics first will read both lists at the same speed, and readers who are subjective whole word readers will usually make more mistakes on the second list than the first list. I have some books here that you can use to prevent whole word dyslexia. Let me mention them. Word Mastery by Florence Akins. I use Reading Made Easy with Blend Phonics by Hazel Loring. We have Remedial Reading Drills by Hedge Kirk and Webster's Spelling Book, all available on my website, donpotter.net. See you there.